there's some tools that I want to make sure everybody knows off the top of their head. Anytime you're doing a photo shoot or you're doing a project that involves getting your photo or video taken. So we're going to talk about creating shapes with your body and being aware of where the light is coming from and just expressing yourself in that sense. So sometimes I see a lot of like newer models when they're posing or they're doing a photo shoot, can be a little bit awkward in terms of like what you're doing and why you're doing it, and even like eye placement. So we know if the camera is primarily just kind of in front of you, we don't want eyes or body shaped so far away that the camera is no longer really visible to who you are, what you're doing. So the most important aspect of a photo to a photographer is going to be the eyes. We need to see your eyes in the camera unless directed otherwise, right? So if there's some creative purposes involved with that or some type of special angle they're trying to get, you can be creatively break the rules, but generally we want to be able to see your eyes in the camera. So that kind of gives you a range of where you're going to be posing and where you're going to be looking. And this happens, like, believe it or not, all the time. I'm always correcting people to like direct their eyes really just over my shoulder, because when I'm looking through the lens, I'm pointing right at you, and if you're, even like me talking to you now, if I'm faced this way but my eyes are this way, it's super awkward, right? So you got to treat the camera like a person. So even like relationship when you're posing, if you're turning to the side because this is where the key light is framed, and then you're looking at the camera this way, now this is now awkward, right? So you're always just kind of looking at it this way, or you're looking just behind it. And so we're going to do some practice steps with that, and creating some movement as well. So I brought some props here so we can create some movement and get our body flowing. So Fahteema, if you want to come over here really quick. This is Fahteema. So there's a loud echo in here, huh? One of the things is whatever is closest to the camera is going to look actually bigger than what it is. And so this can be creatively done, or it can be unintentional. But if you're aware of this, now you can know what to put emphasis on in your photos. So some of those hand poses that we talked about before, if you can give an example of what that is. So reaching out to the camera now. Oops. She's reaching out toward the camera. If I'm focused on her hand, it can look like her hand is humongously bigger than her head, right? But the photographer should be shooting through the hand at her eyes and giving out that blurred out effect. I actually like to have a little bit of a bend in there, so you're creating an angle and having some depth of field, because again, pointing it straight at the camera, only thing the camera's going to see is the hand and her face. The whole arm is going to be blocked out. So creating a shape, adding in the curvature, and even bringing it down or up, there's no limitation here, right? Like you're waving. But having that in there, the hand looks bigger or it's blurred out, and it's creating an interesting shape because we can see the arm leading up. So there's something that's called leading lines. Do you guys know what leading lines are? Leading lines. And so, for example, like there's cracks or divided lines inside the concrete here on the ground. So something a photographer might do, or like a good example would be like train tracks. So on train tracks, you can visualize in your mind the closest track to you is going to be the most visible, it's going to seem the widest, and then as you mentally go down the train tracks, it goes narrow and further apart, or further down the perspective. So you can create leading lines inside your photo shoots as well. So an example of that, let me just move this out the way. An example of that would be, so I'm going to be the photographer, I'm going to sit kind of below, and me shooting up, especially for you petite models, this will make you look really tall. If you're already tall, it's going to make you look like a giant, right? So if you want to look taller in your photos, have the photographer go below you and shoot upward. So in order to create a leading line, if you want to extend one of your legs out and then lean back, drop your shoulder down this way. Yeah, so you could even, as I'm shooting upward, now her foot, the same thing like her hand, is looking bigger than the rest of her body, but it's creating a leading line visually. And you're going to talk about why we're doing this, right? So if I want to create a leading line from the foot up to the body, what's going to be the most noticeable thing in the photos? Yeah, her shoes, right? So if I wanted to showcase her shoes or showcase her jeans or something specific down here, the main focus is going to be there, and it's creating a leading line where it's bring your attention back up to her face. You can do this sitting down as well. So if you want to have a seat in the chair, it rolls. You can scoot forward a little bit more. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, comfortably leaning back into the chair. So here, this pose, again with the leading lines, the focus can be here on the foot, and it can bring your attention up to her face. But the main thing here is it's not awkward, right? So how we create less awkwardness in the photos is the best photos that I see, like in magazines, on billboards, at Target ads. Sometimes it looks like someone was just hanging out and someone just happened to take their photo. She's not like posing per se. He's not striking a pose. Yeah, it's less intentional. It looks like she's just chilling and somebody just happened to take the photo. So expression-wise, emotion-wise, put yourself in the shoes of why are we doing this shoot? What's the concept? What's the theme? What's the emotion that we're trying to get across so that when we create our poses, it's in relationship to that. Does that make sense? So comfortability, less awkward, creating leading lines intentionally. So if you want to sit up straight, a way you can also do kind of like creative leading lines inside your photos is act like you're wearing a watch and you're going to sell me the watch now. So it's very intentional now with the pose. This is actually creating a shape in her arm as far as triangles go. So creating triangles, the letter S is an S curve I'll show you in just a moment, and even like C curves, where it's more of a hunchback or more of a curved type of look. So here, let me make sure the camera can see this because this is important too. All right, so for this pose, everybody can still see? We're creating triangles in two places. Here with the bent elbow, and then on the other side with this arm. And so aesthetically, taking her photo, if the main focus is here on the watch or her makeup or some jewelry that she's wearing, drawing attention to that, the eye of the viewer is going to look here, and then boom, it's being connected, drawn back up to the face. This arm here leading back up to her wrist or to somewhere in her face. So it's depending on what you're trying to showcase in the photos. So what you need to do, especially when a lot of you guys are commercial models and you want to do more work that's in that beauty or fashion realm, you need to put your mind on selling the product. Models get hired in order to sell the product or the service or an emotion that they want that product to invoke.